I'm glad to see you guys here. I've prepared presentation, of course, with lots of tips to have an inclusive event. But I do have a question for you. I would love to hear why you chose to attend this webinar so I can maybe change my presentation a little bit to make sure that you get everything out of this and leave a happy customer. So can I give Maria?
Yeah, hang on. Yes, you can hear me, can't you? Really, I just wanted to see how the webinar works and to listen to you. I'm really open to whatever you say, to be honest, and then I might have some questions afterwards. So sorry that's not over helpful, but that's how it is.
Mila?
Hi, Wendy. Nice to see you here. Thank you for inviting me to this webinar. And yeah, I look forward to what I can learn from you. We know each other from PWN, and maybe I can incorporate some of your tips and tricks into our network. So I'm looking forward to that.
Okay. Odia? Odia? Oh God, your name always.
Hi, Wendy. Wendy, actually, I was at CIO Day in November, and there were no women in the awards, no women nominees, and there were also no women on the board that nominated the nominees, and it was a thing. So when I saw this topic, I thought, aha. I did send them an email. I said, hey, why no women? And they said it's very hard to find women that are willing to participate in this sort of thing. So that was a thing. So I'm very curious to hear what you've got to say.
Okay, I've got some great tips on that. So that's going to work just fine. Danielle?
Hi, Wendy. Yeah, I mean, I guess from my perspective, I've just recently set up a sustainable event management company. So for me, you know, a huge part of sustainability is about equality and diversity. So I'm really keen to sort of make sure that all events that I'm working on, whether I'm running them or sort of advising people on a consultancy basis, are as inclusive as possible.
Cool.
And I think certainly at the moment, you know, with lots of virtual meetings and, you know, obviously hybrid meetings are going to be the future for the event industry. I think that will be a massive part that we'll be able to sort of increase that reach and extend our events more than ever. So I think, yeah, just keeping that diversity and that inclusivity is a massive part of events for me. Okay,
I wish there were more like you. But I do recognize the point that was raised by Alea. That the fact that organizers find it difficult to find female speakers, but they also say that they're not out there, which is obviously not true. But we'll get into that. I think last one, but certainly not least, is Kaylee. Kaylee? Unmute. Kaylee. It's not working. Kaylee? Can you hear me? Okay, we'll get back to Kaylee later. I'm going to start my presentation now, so I'm going to share my screen. And start up my presentation. Oh, hang on. It's one of those days, I can tell. But here we go. So this is a presentation about how to make an inclusive event. And I specifically want to talk about gender inclusion. And as is the case right now, is that there is a lot of events and conferences out there with very few or no female speakers or panelists. And that's a bit strange because there's virtually no branch left where there's not professional women working in, so I don't really get it. And the other thing is that the number of female participants in conferences and events is growing. Women are more out there. They're showing what they've got, and they're eager to network. And those events usually, and I'm speaking mostly about B2B events and conferences, are usually the place where you can make really nice connections. So I want to go into that, and by doing that, I want to start with the start of an event, which is before the event, of course. Then I'll move into, going to the event, getting there, and then at the event, and also after the event. The thing is, if you want to say something, I'm not too familiar with this kind of online webinar tooling. So raise your hand so I can see if you want to say something. And I don't know why they've done the structure that they've done. I'm not too familiar with that. So please excuse me, and we'll have enough time after to ask your questions if you're not allowed or unable, or if I can't see your question. So without further ado, it starts with the invite. The invite is very important. Not only, I've got one more, hang on. I'll accept all requests. Okay. So far, so good. Okay, so it starts with the invite. Not only it starts with the invite to include more female participants, but it also is the attraction to that event of female participants. And to keep in mind when you design the website and the marketing materials, and also when you write or tape or record any kind of content for your website and marketing materials. And one of the things is noticeable is that if you have an inclusive language, you attract more women. You attract more female speakers, but you also attract more female attendees. And it's the same with the visuals. There has to be women in your visuals. And I'm skipping to point 5. You have to ban the booth babes. And with booth babes, I mean at events you see a lot of booths that are manned by female hostesses, to put it nicely. And they are not very nicely called booth babes. Booth babes are a big turnoff for female participants, and also a big turnoff for female speakers. So please be aware of that and make sure that the pictures that you have of, like, say, the event the year before, that there are no booth babes in those pictures. If you want to attract more women, you could argue and say, oh, we're going to incorporate pink in there or something like that. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. But research has shown that you do attract more people if you talk less and show more. So, and in a colorful way. The more dark and gloomy pictures are, so pictures and videos are becoming more and more important, especially when you want to do inclusive events. In social media, make sure that you're not on the platforms that are have mainly men that are on those platforms. It's also really nice to incorporate Instagram and Facebook for your event. Another thing is that if you have an event theme, it might be nice to keep in mind that it should be a theme that you your daughter or your next door neighbor wants to attend as well, or your wife if you're a guy, or if you have a female partner, which means beer brawl, for instance, is not a good inclusive theme. Another thing to do is to do warm-up nights. And warm-up nights are really nice because warm-up nights are a great way to attract more people to your event, and also a great way to spot new speakers. It's usually around the theme that you do an event or a conference of, and it's usually at least 6 months before the event. You can test the waters, sort of, so you can check what people like, where they are at. You can test new speakers and help them perfect their performance. And so warm-up nights are a really nice way to go. Another interesting research that has been done lately is that when an event has more female speakers, automatically it means that there are going to be more female attendees. So it works. It really works if you have a speakers lineup where there's a lot of diversity in there. And another thing to make sure that your conference or event's going to be a success is that you communicate to your sponsors how many female attendees will attend. Because specifically in male-oriented or dominated industries, they still think that it's only men that's going to show up. And it has consequences on how they address the people that are there, what kind of giveaways, what kind of special treats or prizes they send out, and or accommodate. So it is a real good idea to make sure that you give them like a heads up that there's going to be women there as well. I'm going to stop the share to make sure that you guys can say something. Oh, Kaylee has audio problems. Okay, that's why we didn't hear from Kaylee. So if you have any questions about this, please let me know. And otherwise, I'll go back to sharing my screen again and go back to the presentation. Just give me a thumbs up, please.
Hi, Wendy. Just a quick question. Would these sort of rules apply to sort of different, when we're talking about diversity, more than just sort of gender balance, but in terms of different cultures and, getting that cultural diversity? So we should still be sort of just celebrating that it's more than, a panel of white middle-aged men in grey suits.
Yeah, that's usually the case, right? When we're talking about inclusiveness, for one reason or another, especially in Europe and in North America, it's usually white male speakers and panelists. But yes, I've read some research, because I read just about anything that has to do with diversity, and it's the same for color, for cultural background. So yeah, you could just put those words in there, and then it's the same thing.
Okay, great.
So yeah, and there's words where you can make sure that your crowd and also the speakers are going to be more diverse. With the watch your language, for instance, it is real good that if you communicate upfront, there's going to be non-alcoholic beverages. There's going to be a lot of people from mid-Asia are a vegetarian, so make sure that you have a vegetarian option in your catering. Also, the words international and all over the world, and that kind of wording and phrasing helps diversify your audience. And also, if you just set up your communication first, will attract you more international or intercultural speakers as well.
Right.
But
okay, thank you.
yeah, but seeing things works even better. So if you portray pictures and videos out of previous, like say last year, be very eminent about picking pictures where there's women in there or people of color, so you can clearly see that it's an intercultural kind of thing. Going back, for one reason or another, I can't do the talking and then sharing at the same time. So I'm switching back to my screen again. So the other thing that's really important is access to your event. And it sounds a bit weird, but for one reason or another, people don't think about this. But access to your event is very important. And with access to your event, I mean literally access. So driving or commuting to your event location, which is currently not the case, but still. And also, if it's a virtual event, make sure that it is accessible for people with poor sight or maybe deaf people. It is interesting to look upon that. And but I'm talking about a non-virtual event now, which is parking. Parking at an event is always a stressful thing, but bear in mind that most women will wear heels. If you have a parking spot that's further away, or if somebody has a disability, make sure that they can park close by. And if it's further away, make sure that there's like a van driving up and down, and also make sure that the parking spot is not dirt. I've been to a couple of events where they've just, maybe rented a field from a farmer or something. And I was really glad, because I learned from the first time that it happened to me that I had some slippers with me, so I could not ruin my beautiful shoes up front. So I could put on my slippers and then change shoes when I was there. It's a thing that has to be considered. So high heels, step-free access, and clear signing. That's another thing. I know it's a huge generalization, but I've done some all-women events, and I must say, signing is very, very important. You all know the saying that women can't read maps and stuff like that, and I always thought it was a huge generalization, but I've found out that it is the case with women. It's just signing is very, very, very important. The reception. So you parked your car or you commuted to the location, and then you're at the reception area. At the reception area, it's really nice if you don't see just young women receptionists. I always feel that should be diverse as well. It's really nice if you're not the only woman in the room, and it's also nice if it's not just women that are in a serving role. The other thing a lot of event managers don't think about is that women usually, most women, wear more delicate materials than men do. So that's why I put the non-piercing name tags in there. It's really a thing. And if you want to make sure that you meet those requirements, please make sure that you do. And if you have somebody in a wheelchair there, a little name tag is going to be 1/2 meter down. So maybe if you want to be very inclusive, those little name tags are not the way to go. And another thing that a lot of events and conferences do is they give you a huge bag with all kinds of other stuff in there. That's really nice, but maybe not very environmental friendly. And you would be better off if you just give them like a little bag or no bag at all, which, like I said, is more environmental friendly. I'm gonna switch to you guys again. Any questions or remarks about that? No?
Sorry, me again. I just had a quick question just about, you mentioned about sort of catering for deaf people or blind people, certainly sort of in virtual events. Would language be part of that as well? I've been asked, just to give you an example, by a sort of a society that they're sort of global interpreters, and they're talking about sort of accessibility and inclusivity being, you know, a big part of what they're offering in terms of being able to speak in, you know, your native language, so that people in the audience can follow along and feel more comfortable with the content and with asking questions. Similarly, with speakers being able to present in their native language, would you include that as well as a key part of this?
Yeah, I'm coming back to that, but yes, language is a big thing, and especially if you want to make sure that people that don't really speak English very well, but they're really good speakers. Like I know some really excellent Dutch speakers, but they're really crap in English. It does happen. And then I've seen some events where you can they have an app, and there's a translator, and you can switch to a language that you like. So, and I believe they work the same way in the European Congress as well. So you just hold your phone next to your ear, and you can see the performance and hear it in a language that you prefer. So modern tech is a real benefit here.
Okay, great, thank you.
Is that an answer to your question, or?
Yeah, no, that's perfect, thanks.
Good. So as you can see, I'm going to switch back and forth because for one reason or another, I can't hear you if I'm in the share screen modus. So bear with me, okay? Going back to that. Catering. We talked about this already, but that's really important too. Catering, and for I don't know why, but men usually don't have a lot of requests regarding food, and women do. So if you want to make a more inclusive event, it might be nice to have a lot of tea there as well, and not just coffee, to have non-alcoholic beverages there, sugar-free snacks, vegetarian and vegan snacks, oh, I've got an in there, sorry. So that's really important too. And just, you know, and if you are not sure if you have to do that for a large group of people, it is very, very sociable and also very welcoming if you ask your attendees questions about what they want to drink, or let them choose what they can, so you can accommodate that. I've organized huge events for 400 to 600 people, and they all told me that I did that for every event, and they all told me that one of the most welcoming things I could have done before they even were there, because they could communicate what they would like to eat, what they would like to drink. They could just pick and choose out of it, and your catering service is going to be really happy too, because it means no angry people at the counter if all the vegan snacks are gone. So it's a good idea to do inventory before you before even the event starts. And then there's another thing. Research has shown that only 30% of all speakers are women. And most people feel very uncomfortable about that. In tech and IT, it's less women that are working in those areas. But can you imagine a marketing and communication conference and only 30% women, which is weird. In healthcare, medical conferences, 30% women. In my country, in Holland, it's 70% women who work in healthcare. So, to my opinion, we're missing something there. But how do you get them? And how do you attract these female speakers? So I did some digging and some asking, and here are my tips. First of all, invite them early, because most of the time they have a family and they already feel sort of like, I'm going away for 3 days and how are they going to manage? It's not that they can't manage, but it worries them more than male speakers. So invite them early and then display them if they accept your invitation immediately in the speakers lineup. If there's already one woman there, the chances of another woman, female speaker, accepting is way larger. So please do that. Invite them personally. They want to be asked personally, which means, dear madam, and an email is maybe not the way to go. Be detailed. Be specific as possible. So time of their slot, the date, provide them with travel and accommodation if possible, and make sure that you pay them. It's a thing. Most women will, and of course that's nice for event managers, but most women will do it anyway, but it's not good, and especially not good for the circuits. And the other thing I want to emphasize is pay them as much as the other speakers. There should be no difference between them. Unfortunately, a top male speaker earns about 30% more than a top female speaker. There are some exceptions to rules. For instance, Michelle Obama, she gets more than her husband, but that also has to do with the popularity of her book, which was way better received than the book that Obama himself wrote. So yeah, be sure. What else? If it's new speakers, like I said, a warm-up night, it might be a good idea. And you have to be aware that women, and this has also been researched, have a confidence gap. They have about 70% of them has a confidence gap versus 30% men. I'm not saying that all men are confident, but for one reason or another, we're wired that way. So to bridge this confidence gap, you could, in your invitation, state specifically why you want her as a speaker, some compliments and some recommendations that you've got would really work, especially if somebody in your network recommended her and she knows that person as well. It's just a way to bridge that gap, and it makes it easier for female speakers to come to your event. Okay. Any questions? Hello? Are there any more questions? Well, then I'm just gonna go ahead. Okay. Hang on, I'm gonna have to. Sometimes, really. there is something that is not working properly. Hang on, I'm going to try this again. Yes. Okay. Can you see the screen? I'm guessing not.
No, not yet.
Try this again.
That's it. Yeah, it's back on.
Okay. Okay. So as an extra perk, I prepared a slide by the end of this where I point you into the direction of a lot of female speaker platforms. So if you're in need of a female speaker, that's places that you can go to. At the event itself, there's a couple of things that are not very inclusive. Language use like ladies first or our female speaker to introduce them is a bit weird. People don't like that, and especially most women don't like to be referred to as a female speaker. They are a speaker on, yeah, okay, they're female too. But I've never heard a host say our male speaker. So if you don't do it for the men, don't do it for the women. That's basically the best way to go. There are a lot of hosts and presenters that aren't aware that they do this, and they aren't aware of their unconscious bias. So please make sure that they're not referring to female speakers as girls or anything that makes a female speaker feel less. So inclusive language, you're most of the time, especially when it's a man, but also women do this. Make sure that you prep your host or presenter about inclusive language. Make sure that microphones and all the tech that is needed are accommodated to long hair. I am a speaker myself, and I've had numerous times where the mic couldn't fit into my hair and stuff. So I had to walk around with a mic, which is not very comfortable. And also that there's a secluded area where you can thread the mic through your dress all the way down, because if you wear a wireless microphone, it's really nice if there's a secluded area, and because most of the times it's not really like to be there in your underwear to make sure that the mic is placed at the right position. Another thing that I noticed last time I was at a big conference is that the front row, and they had more people attending that they were accounting for, so they placed a couple of extra rows, and those rows were so close to the podium, and that podium was fairly high, that you could almost see right up the dresses and skirts that speakers were wearing. That's not very comfortable. So make sure that that you test that. And another thing, I'm a panelist as well, and panel seats usually are too high because in general women are shorter, and they're very dress or skirt unfriendly. It's hassle to climb on them, and so make sure that you test that out as well. And another thing that it is right up the area where I said please make sure that the public on front row is not too close. Same with photographers. I've seen some very uncomplimentary shots, and the bad thing about this is that people start talking about that awful shot and not about how great the speaker was, and obviously that shouldn't be the case. I'm gonna switch back to you guys. Any comments or anything that you think, oh, this was worthwhile waiting for, or do you have any questions about the tips I'm given?
Hi Wendy, I just had a quick question just about in the past we've run sort of
Could you speak up a bit, because
sorry, is that better?
Yeah, better.
Sorry, microphone just dropped down.
Oh, that's fine.
We've run in the past sort of female only events, you know, as part of a wider event, or like a networking reception or something just for women.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, I guess that could be interpreted in two ways. One, that you're celebrating women in the industry and giving them, I guess, a platform that they may not necessarily have had access to. But similar to you saying, don't say our female speaker, are we making more of an issue of it by sort of isolating women as a separate group? I never know which way to think about it. In the best light, is it making more of an issue of something where we do want equality? So by celebrating women in the industry, is that making it worse?
Yeah, I do know where you're coming from. I've organized women-only event, and that camaraderie and you know, sharing and feeling accepted and not the odd one out is something that I can only applaud, because it's difficult enough. So you see a lot of women in STEM and IT kind of events, because in that industry it's even more difficult to hold your own, as you might say. So I do understand where you're coming from. The bad thing about it is that we really need men. We need to make sure that we include men, because it should, yeah, you need them to make a change. If the men don't want to change, it's going to be real hard and real difficult, and it will take a long time before anything changes. So I do understand the women-only events, but be aware that men look upon those events as not being like the male chauvinist kind of men look upon those events as being as sort of like a tea party kind of thing, and not the English version, but like a Dutch version where it's just women getting together, drinking tea, eating pastry, and babble along, and nothing important is said there. So be aware that men look upon these events like that. The best way to change this is to have great content events, I think anyway, where you make sure that there's at least 30% women speaking at that event. And they are out there. And why not portray them and make role models out of them? Because that would be more beneficial in the bigger picture, I think. But that's my opinion. There's a lot of pros and cons for both. A mixture of the two might be nice.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think I did like an international.
But only female only events, I think, is a bad way to go.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I'm going to. I'm seeing Maria has to go, so she has another meeting. So thank you, Maria, for attending. And I'm going back to the last part of my presentation, if that's all right with you guys. Okay, so you've done the event, you had your female speakers and everything, but after the event is just as important as before the event, because everybody that missed it should think, oh God, next year I'm going to be there, or next time I'm going to be there. So to make sure that you excel on that as well, I've got some tips as well. Make sure that the goodie bag is not a men's swag kind of thing. So the best way to go about this is to ask yourself, what would I give this to my sister, gay colleague, Muslim co-worker? And if the answer is yes, then it's fine. But you do often see like mini bottles of vodka or stuff like that, and that's obviously for Muslim people not a very nice gift to give. And also beer openers and stuff that's really manly, maybe not a good way to go there like that. And another thing is that you a lot of events have as a gift a nice t-shirt with like a cool graphic on there to remind them of the event. But if you know women are going to be there, make sure that it's not tent size and they're tailored and that women really want to wear it. And I've seen a lot of events that don't do that, but unfortunately I've seen when they do that, a lot of event managers change the color. We don't want to be the only one there, and especially don't want to stand out like that. So making the same color, only make sure that it's something that is suited to a women's body. And in regards of after movies and photos, that's something I already talked about in the beginning. So it's full circle, I guess, is that it would be nice to have at least one woman in 50% of all pictures. And like I said, ban booth babes and hostesses in your footage because it gives the wrong message, because former attendees or future attendees could think that there's no women there, and booth babes and hostesses are not very not the picture we want to give to these female attendees. And this is the list I was talking about, female speaker lists. There are a lot of lists out there, and they're also most of the times also country specific. So if you Google female speaker list and go beyond page 1, because page 1 is usually the ones that are always asked, it would be nice to see new faces out there, and also gives you a fair advantage over other events, because you come up with speakers that haven't been around that much, and so therefore are new, and there's a lot of experience but also very knowledgeable women out there. So this is a list that you can maybe use for that. I'm going to go back to you guys. So did you get all the answers you were expecting, or do you have any more questions?
I have a question, Wendy. Can you hear me? Yeah, so my husband, he organizes events, right? So every now and then, you know, it used to be mostly male speakers. Now he has female speakers. And a lot of the time, there's a lot of eye rolling from me, because some of the female speakers talk about, you know, traditionally female issues.
Oh.
So I don't like that, you know. So he organizes all these Jewish seminars, and most of them, you know, they're quite interesting, because you know, they mix like secular and religious topics together. So, you know, super interesting, you know, medical issues and Jewish law, for example. So really fun stuff. And then, you know, you finally get a female speaker, and then, you know, she's talking about things to do with family values, you know, and yeah, that tends to get a bit of eye rolling from my end. And people will go to her lectures, but then they don't really want to, because, you know, it's, you know, eye roll time again, you know. So I keep telling him, you've got to bring someone to talk about something that's, you know, like the men.
Well, or have a male speaker talk about those topics, because there's not like I said, there's not going to be a lot of respect towards people from another culture or from another gender if they don't talk about like the real stuff. And I'm not talking about that family planning is not our real stuff, but I'm talking about the issues that the top male speakers speak about. If you can arrange that, and if you can manage that, to get female speakers or because there's not too many speakers out there that are clearly from another culture as well. Like Danielle was saying, there's a lot of white male speakers out there. It switches around, and it gives not only respect to that speaker, but also to the other female attendees at that event. It rubs off on them. So I do understand your eye roll. So I would suggest to make sure, and also if a guy speaks about family planning, the other guys in the room are going to listen better, because it's a guy that's saying that. It's not a women's thing or a woman that tries to change them. It's a guy that speaks from in his own experience, and that's usually when you organize an event or a conference, you want after the event that something happens or something changes, or you want to motivate people to change or motivate people to come into action. So that way it might work better. But yeah, that's my view on things. And I've done that, and I've seen it work, but I haven't seen it a lot yet, unfortunately.
Okay, but I like that twist. Get a man to talk about it instead. Okay, yeah. Okay, thanks.
Because men, yeah, they like listening to other men. And they want to listen to women, but only if she's like an expert on, I don't know, something technical or something groundbreaking on in their field. They're sort of forgetting that it's a woman, and on the plus side, they're also giving more respect to the women that are at the conference as well, because it gives a knowledgeable vibe, sort of.
Yeah. Thank you.
Danielle, do you have any more questions? Danielle? I'm guessing Danielle.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't find the mute button, the unmute button. No, that's fine. Thank you. Sorry, I asked plenty as we went through. So
yeah, but I love people that ask. It's a tick, I think, that I have. But I like giving you information that you can really work with. So the more you ask, the more information you get, which you can do something with. It's no use for me to talk. Because and no questions, because I already know what I'm talking about, so there's no use for that. It's I love it when people talk a lot, so therefore I thank you from the bottom of my heart, Danielle.
Oh, you're welcome. I think that the biggest thing for me is I'm torn on whether having sort of or celebrating women in the industry is making it worse for us or better. So I can see that from both sides. But yeah, I mean, I used to work in financial services, and we would really push to have a diverse panel. So we would really try for at least 50% female speakers. But you then are hit with the argument of, we're just getting a female speaker, but she isn't actually very knowledgeable on the subject, but it's because we need a woman on the panel, rather than actually
getting. That's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, similar to what you were saying about having a great speaker, but they can't present in English or something. So I guess it's trying to work out because I want to be able to celebrate that diversity at all of my events, but ultimately you want it's a bit like positive discrimination. You want the best person. Yeah, you want the best person for the job. You want the best person for the event. If that happens to be a man, a middle-aged white man, but the problem is, when does that stop? And like you said, I think getting men involved to champion it as well.
Yeah, that's why I gave the suggestion of the warm-up night, because then you can sort of help and shape. It really works for like a small audience that are gonna, are getting a taste of it. That works. It really works, and especially to find new speakers that nobody has had yet, but are really interesting to listen to. So that could set you apart from others. sort of like being a detector of new talents. And the other thing is that women speakers are not as visible as male speakers, and it has to do with a lot of things. And the same with intercultural speakers as well. I don't know why that is, but it is the case. It's getting better. I'm grateful for that. But you do see a lot of the same faces, and we need to make sure that that's not happening too often.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I liked what you said about getting men involved to sort of raise these issues, and because we need ultimately them to be behind us. And you know, the example that you said of the Obamas, and you know, he's the first one to sort of celebrate everything that Michelle's doing, which is brilliant. So I think getting
they are in more ways than one a great couple. Is that he's one of those guys that is cheering along the sidelines when his wife has more success than him.
And I liked he said,
I'm married to a guy like that, so I recognize it.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I remember he said on one speech, you know, you might, I'm Michelle's husband, you know, you might know me, I'm Michelle's husband.
Ooh, cool.
I really
cool
like
that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I've been to sort of a few International Women's Day events, and there were men in the audience and men on the panel. And obviously the majority of the room were female, but I think it's really important to not exclude men from those sort of events, because we need them to be there to sort of champion it with us. So yeah.
Well, on that note, if you want to read a bit more about that, I created a how do you say that, an ebook on how to involve men in gender diversity. So it's going to be on my website next week. So we're connected. So and you'll see it posted in my LinkedIn, and you're very welcome to download it and read it. I'm always glad if men and women are interested in gender diversity, because it's something I'm very passionate about. Keep in mind when you're organizing an event that you head to tail, constantly ask yourself if it's suitable, and if it's, you know, as a woman or as a man or as somebody from another cultural background would feel comfortable in the thing you have in mind. And of course, male or female speakers or speakers within, you know, with another cultural background is interesting and certainly a way to go. But the devil is in the detail, as I say. So if you organize something, make sure that in the whole process there's inclusivity, and that would help your the event you're organizing as well. The extra upside on it, younger people and millennials are more are more engaged and like inclusive events more. So you would attract a younger audience as well. On that account, I'm leaving. Thank you so much, and hope to see you maybe again. You can always ask a one-on-one as well, and let me know if you organize an event so I can promote it.
Super, will do. Thanks ever so much.
Okay.
Thanks, Wendy. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.